President Sisi receives credentials of 23 new ambassadors to Egypt. Egyptian ministers hold high-level talks with a senior UN officials delegation. And the Egyptian authorities complete extensive upgrades ahead of the grand opening of GEM. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received the credentials of 23 new ambassadors to Egypt. Ambassador Mohammed al-Shinnawi, the official spokesperson for the presidency of the Republic, stated that the president welcomed the newly accredited ambassadors to the Arab Republic of Egypt, affirming Egypt's pride in its distinguished relations with their countries and its firm commitment to strengthening the bonds of bilateral cooperation across various fields. And Egypt has dispatched its 59th aid convoy under the Zat al-Izza Provision of Honor from Egypt to Gaza initiative from Rafah to Gaza via Karam Abu Salim border crossing. And the aid convoy carried over 10,000 tons of humanitarian and petroleum supplies to the Gaza Strip. The shipment also included 6,000 tons of food and flour, 2,700 tons of medical and relief items, and 1,500 tons of fuel as part of Egypt's ongoing support for Gaza's population. And since its launch on July the 27th, the initiative has delivered hundreds of thousands of tons of essential aid. Operating as Egypt's national mechanism for aid coordination, the Egyptian Red Crescent remains stationed at the Egyptian side of the Rafah border, never fully closed from Egypt's side, mobilizing 35,000 volunteers and facilitating the delivery of over 500,000 tons of relief to Gaza. And Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati, Planning Minister Rania El-Mashat, and External Trade Minister Hassan Al-Khatib held high-level talks in Cairo with a delegation of senior United Nations officials to strengthen cooperation on sustainable development, women's empowerment, and humanitarian support for Gaza. The UN delegation included leaders from the UNDP, the UNFPA, UNOPS, UNICEF, UN Women, and the WFP. Discussions focused on food and water security, healthcare and education reform, child protection, and promoting gender equality in women's leadership. Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati called the visit a timely reaffirmation of Egypt's strategic partnership with the UN and highlighted the country's role in multilateral diplomacy, hosting 38 UN offices and more than 2,300 staff. Planning Minister Rania El-Mashat underscored Egypt's economic reforms and the UN's role in supporting Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. The Arab League's permanent representative to the United Nations has stressed the need for the Palestinian Authority to assume full control over all Palestinian territories. Speaking at the UN Security Council session on the Middle East, he urged the Israeli government to abandon its ambitions of a greater Israel and called on Israel to cease all forms of aggression against the Arab states, emphasizing that regional peace requires respect for sovereignty and international law. Ahead of the Grand Egyptian Museum's grand opening, authorities have completed extensive upgrades in the surrounding area, including road improvements, landscaping, and enhanced public services. The beautification stretches along key access roads from Shooting Range Square to Fayoum Road and creating a cohesive and visually impressive approach for visitors. The Giza governor, Adel al-Nagar, emphasized meticulous attention to detail and continuous supervision to ensure the area reflects Egypt's cultural heritage and meets safety and aesthetic standards. The upgrades aim to present the museum as a world-class destination, welcoming international visitors and dignitaries to this landmark cultural event. Egypt's ambassador to Beirut, Ala Moussa, has held a press conference following his meeting with the Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, affirming Cairo's full support for Lebanon's stability and sovereignty. He said discussions focused on the need to ensure that weapons remain solely under state authority, emphasizing that Egypt backs the Lebanese president's balanced and objective approach to current challenges. The Egyptian ambassador warned that Israel's escalation in Lebanon requires urgent regional action to halt it, adding that calm in Gaza would positively impact the entire region. He noted Egypt's intensive efforts to help Lebanon overcome its current crises, highlighting strong political coordination and broad cooperation between the two countries. Aoun expressed readiness to enter negotiations towards a settlement amid ongoing Israeli violations. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has held calls with his counterparts from France, Greece, Saudi Arabia and Jordan to discuss developments in Sudan and Palestine. And the talks addressed the deteriorating situation in Sudan's El Fasher, emphasizing coordination to support ceasefire and humanitarian efforts. Abdelati further stressed building on the outcomes of the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit and the Gaza ceasefire to advance recovery and reconstruction efforts. He also reviewed preparations for Egypt's upcoming international conference on Gaza's early recovery. Egypt's Central Bank and Ministry of Foreign Affairs have launched the Open Your Account in Egypt initiative, allowing Egyptians working abroad to open bank accounts remotely through embassies and consulates. The program, in partnership with the National Bank of Egypt and Bank Masr, enables expatriates to complete account forms at diplomatic missions, verified by consulates and the Foreign Ministry before being processed by Egyptian banks. The CBE Governor, Hassan Abdullah, said the initiative aims to boost remittances through official channels, encourage domestic investment, and expand digital banking services for Egyptians abroad. Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati added it aligns with presidential directives to strengthen ties with the expatriate community and support national economic growth. And speaking at the opening of the Global Meeting for Peace in Rome, the Italian President Sergio Mattarella has lauded the Grand Imam Dr. Ahmed al-Tayyib of Al-Azhar for his role in advancing human fraternity, coexistence and interfaith dialogue. And quoting the Grand Imam, Mattarella emphasized the need to raise the banner of peace and not the banner of victory, and called for dialogue guided by reason and wisdom. The president also highlighted the historic document on human fraternity signed by Pope Francis and the Grand Imam, urging the world to amplify the moral authority of religious leaders to counter conflict and build lasting peace for future generations. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has held a government meeting in the new administrative capital to discuss investment opportunities planned for the coming period and cooperation with Arab countries. And the government emphasized enhancing Egypt's investment climate with new incentives for local and foreign investors. Officials also highlighted joint investment opportunities with Arab countries in sectors such as industry, energy, infrastructure, real estate, agriculture, tourism, and food. Spokesperson Mohammed Al-Homousani noted that the meeting reaffirmed the success of government reforms in macroeconomic policies covering fiscal, monetary and trade measures which support a more attractive business environment and strengthen Egypt's position as a regional investment hub. And under President Sisi's auspices, Egypt will host the Global Congress on Population Health and Human Development, the PHDC, from the 10th to the 13th of November 2025 in the new administrative capital. And Health Minister Dr. Khalid Abdelghafar said the Congress will cover population, family and human development, AI in healthcare and presidential health initiatives, engaging international institutions and the Ministerial Group for Human Development. 9,480 participants have registered, with exhibitions and specialized forums planned. On-site, mobile labs will provide screening and diagnostics, highlighting the event's focus on practical, community-oriented health engagement. Egypt's Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade, Hassan Al-Khatib, has met with the British Ambassador, Mark Bryson Richardson, to discuss strengthening bilateral economic ties and preparations for the Egypt-UK Investment Conference in December. And Khatib highlighted Egypt's macroeconomic reforms over the past year, including monetary, fiscal and trade policy measures, noting inflation has fallen to around 12% and the trade deficit dropped to $30 billion. Customs clearance times have been cut by 63%, and a new trade policy focusing on competitiveness and regional partnerships is underway. He emphasized the government's commitment to digital transformation, with over 460 digital services now available to streamline investment procedures. Khatib also underlined Egypt's aim to double foreign direct investment and position the country as a regional manufacturing and trade hub. Egypt's Minister of Local Development and Acting Minister of Environment, Manel Awad, has met with a World Bank delegation headed by Brigitte Hansel, the director of the country's programs at the bank's independent evaluation group, to review the Upper Egypt Local Development Program. And Awad highlighted the program's achievements in Sohag, Ena, Asyut and Minya, noting full implementation of infrastructure projects, creation of over 396,000 jobs and high industrial land occupancy rates. She emphasized the program's impact on improving local administration, transparency and service delivery. World Bank officials praised the program's effectiveness in stimulating private sector growth, achieving development targets and empowering communities through participatory planning. Egypt has received approval to export fresh pomegranates to Venezuela, marking a step forward in the country's efforts to diversify agricultural exports and boost hard currency earnings. Agriculture Minister Ala Farouk said the agreement follows technical negotiations on phytosanitary standards with no additional plant health conditions imposed. He credited the success to Egypt's quarantine officials, agricultural departments, laboratories and farmers' compliance with international standards. The ministry plans to continue opening new export markets for Egyptian crops, building on recent achievements from national agricultural initiatives. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we wrap up, and here's a recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. President Sisi receives credentials of 23 new ambassadors to Egypt. Egyptian ministers hold high-level talks with the senior UN officials delegation. And the Egyptian authorities complete extensive upgrades ahead of the grand opening of GEM. For more stories and live updates, do follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG. And from all of us here, thank you for watching and stay tuned for more news and analysis on Q News.